let's just dive right on in here. And you kind of gave me the introduction, but after leaving UC, I've had lots of fun with my career. You kind of covered this. I guess the thing I would touch on is, today's topic that I'm going to be diving into is a world that we don't know right now. It's the event world, where I spent about 10 years when I was at IBM and Lenovo creating. So it was wonderful to put this together because it reminds me of how much that human connection is important for all of us. So let's move on into what I'm going to be showing you is I'm going to show you kind of like the value of events. I think it's an unusual design topic. And this is the reason why. Basically, event marketing is a medium that companies use, certainly from a B2B and a B2C, to show off products and have a human connection with their customers. I don't think there's anything that is as powerful as that one-on-one. And I'll go into this in my final slide, but since the event world has shifted over to virtual events, I think in the beginning, when I guess back in July, people were thinking that, oh, virtual events, they'll be so much easier than in-person events. But I think what we're realizing is that there's so much of that one-on-one and that human connection that you have, that now you have to orchestrate it and just really write a script for that, where it was very natural and organic before. So people invest in events. So let's go to some of the other reasons why they do that. So, I mean, you guys can see this, but experiences are a journey, and I think that they have a lot of recognition, and people remember them more when they experience them. I've seen, in my career, events going from, the shiny object ideas that people really want deep stuff. They don't want to just look at a chia pet on a table. There has to be meaningful engagement. I think that's a given. And they have to, people want it to be, more cozy and more unique, and not just big blammo, huge spaces without any personality. One of the more important things is that you can throw an event, but if you don't have an underlying story for it, why you're there, technology is one layer, but you've really got to talk about why your technology is differentiated from your competitors. It's really important. And then, of course, authenticity. You can't just, act like somebody else. You've got to build kind of that credibility for your brand through the experience, colors, and all that stuff. But I'm going to show you what that looks like soon. So moving on to the next slide. So this is one of my favorite quotes. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I think that basically sums up what an event, a really successful event, can be. Now, there might be some people in this audience that are like, oh my God, events drive me crazy, but they can, and they're overwhelming. But if you take them, one at a time, I think they're okay. So one of my first case studies, CES, it's the Consumer Electronics Show for people that don't necessarily know that acronym. It happens in Las Vegas every year, except for this year coming up. It's going to move to a virtual event. But it's basically where people come and show, all the crazy electronics that are being shown. I think the Today Show always picks out the really wild ones, and I think those are enjoyable. I always try to go see them once I have my event design installed and all that. But so basically, this is a really crowded space. A lot of people are there just trying to, show their things off as best as the person next to them. And where Lenovo, I think we were there for, 10 years. There was a couple of years because the restaurant was being worked on. They couldn't go there. But we kind of started this idea of hospitality, using hospitality instead of being on a showroom floor where there's like a million different people and they have the big thick carpet and you get tired of walking around. We would take over a restaurant in the Venetian and just kind of made it loungy, but made it a product display and all that stuff. And I think we were one of the first people to do that. In later years, we had like Dell and some of the other competitors do the same thing and follow suit. So I'm going to show you how, experience design to me is something that is, and this is perfect right here, is something that is a system that can be applied, digital, across digital, print, 2D, 3D, and if there was a 4D in some cases with AI, really kind of that connective tissue when you're designing an event. So this is kind of the this for the latest round of event design. This is kind of the visual strategy that laddered up to this theme that we were trying to say about intelligent transformation. So, okay, brain looks like that, but doesn't it kind of look better when you make it two halves? And then transformation became this kind of triangular object. And then we combined them, although transformation looks like a Cheez-It. I know you guys are thinking that. We combined it into this pattern that you're going to see applied throughout the space. So this is, I feel like my presentation is kind of like our design process behind it. But one thing I wanted to say about event design in general is that it's fast. It's almost like you're an architect for an installation that lasts 5 days. And it gives you room for failure in a way. It's not like they take a super long process of getting the right products and what you're going to talk about. That's the lengthy 6 to 9 months ahead of a 4-day event. But once the event's up, it's only there for 4 days. So, I mean, you can do things that will die in 5 days. And I'm going to show you one thing that does. So let's move on to that next slide. So this is just kind of showing, when you have that pattern and then you start combining it with visual design, how you start to create kind of a rich look and feel, and pictures, stock photography and stuff that we would photograph specifically for events we would use in this. So that's a master visual. And now, this is kind of the applied graphics part of it. If you move on to the next slide, okay, this is the first thing. This is the first thing somebody's going to see when they're coming to a Lenovo event, is that online invitation. And, this is the hint. We're starting to tease out the theme. And so this is the beginning. And then you go deeper. So more of the experiential, the three-dimensional part of it is, Lenovo has hundreds of products, and it seemed like, you would start to see the ones that are going to be announced and what the features that they had in there. You had to illustrate it in a really eye-catching kind of way that would make people stop. So these are two of my little hand-drawn sketches in regards to, like, the top one is about, like, how do you show a product that is always on? And this is a product that really is always on. It has like an immense battery life. I don't know. I want to say 80 hours. Don't quote me, but I don't work for Lenovo anymore. And then, and then it's always connected with 5G. And then for our ThinkPad brand, that was, the one product that you could basically drop off a truck or out of the sky and it would survive. So it's always kind of proving that these things are really, they can take a lot of the product features. So these are the sketches. And then the next slide will show you what they turned into. So this is an actual build. This is in the front window part of this event. And, there's a little product there. And then if you click to the next slide, I think that's my little animation. And then you have to click it again. So we tried to insinuate a train. And I think we did a pretty good job so that, you're walking by this, you'd be like, wait a minute, there's a train inside, a Las Vegas hotel. Granted, that's not all that unusual for Las Vegas, but so this is kind of how we brought those features to life for this particular, I think this is a mixed product, and so product shelving. So in moving on to the next slide, we'll show you how we basically put a ThinkPad, and you have to have this thing running to prove that it's on. It's not a paper graphic there. So basically these were two pieces of ice that were, we refreshed the ice in the morning and at night because it would eventually melt, and the product was sandwiched in between the two of them, and it just kept running all day long. So it was kind of fun, and this was pretty eye-catching, and it was also kind of cool too. So that's kind of how we brought those products to life. Now this is another window, and I think if you click one more time, kind of shows you an animation that we put around this. And this kind of spoke to the durability of that bottom ThinkPad taking a golf ball as it would go through all this thing. But it also told a story about some of the usage of our products and our technologies and in wind farms. And, we were, we had some technology that allowed people to dig deeper in a mine and all that stuff. But once again, I think it's got entertainment value, and it stops people from walking by. And as they want to go deeper into the information, they can, but that was kind of fun. So it's an ode to Rube Goldberg. So these are just, kind of capturing the attitude of an event, and some things that I would say about product experience. You're trying to get a little bit of real world in there. think in my career I had to build like, I don't know how many smart homes. People want to see how that product's going to look in the bedroom and all that. And sometimes it'd feel a little bit cliche to me, but the one thing as a designer, you can never lose track of your customer, and you got to kind of play in their world. So there's that. I think that top right photo kind of shows how people walk by. Those guys are walking too fast to really take in the train, but you can kind of get the idea. So yes, I think I have a couple more photos. Okay, so once again, a visual identity system has to travel across a bunch of different things. This was a handy dandy app that, it's not like our venue was really huge, but there were a bunch of different products, and you could do some self-guided tours. Sometimes people want to have that person talking them through all the product features, but then there's those other people that just want to be able to do it on their own. So I think thinking about different pathways of people to experience a product display is really important, and it's got the big visual on it. This is another thing. I think we did get a lot of traffic because of the bands. I've been able to meet a lot of really cool people during this, and since we had this event at this restaurant for 10 years, we had partner nights, and I think the Intel partner night was usually the craziest nights. And I think year 2, there were columns in the space. We had to pad them because people would run into them. So once again, you got to be ready to evolve your design strategy each year. I think I got one more thing. And of course, you got to pull it through, promotional wear, what people are going to wear while they're there, and, badging and the lanyards. I have a stack of lanyards that's just like a mile long from each of the events. So that's kind of, CES. Oh, another big facet of it, the reason why I think one of the bigger reasons why Lenovo was there is to also push out the social media and gain followers and traction with people that weren't able to be at the event. So once again, the visual identity system has to play in that world, be eye-catching, and you can see how these kind of ladder back to that overall look and feel. And there's some funky products. It's wild to step back and see these because this is, just a year ago. And then just kind of a wrap-up slide. I think this was certainly a sense of pride for the product designers. These are all the awards that the Lenovo products would bring in, and that would be something that we would finish up an event with. So that's the Consumer Electronics Show. Second big event, second case study I wanted to go through had a little bit of a different attitude about it. It was held every year in Barcelona, Spain. And this was different from the Consumer Electronics Show in that it was really focused on mobile devices. So, once again, you talk about your strategy ahead of design, and you start to come up with those themes that would make sense. And I also call this a Spanish Disney World. It totally felt like that. This was, you basically faced with a piece of flat concrete, and you had to build from the ground up instead of like taking out furniture in a restaurant. So this particular year, we really talked about the pocket to data center. So it's like, oh, I've got this cell phone, but the whole ecosystem behind it. So as I show you some of the design investigations, as designers, the mood board is something that you begin with, and this is where we started. These aren't designs that I worked up, but I think it's really important to, you got to do your research and think about, if you're trying to show what does a data center look like, certainly everything's connected. You want to show how that is. So this was some stuff, and then you can look at the next page that has some more stuff, and just, what's going to be that thing that's eye-catching. And, environmental design is just beautiful, it's immersive. And so these were some other ideas. And then I think I have one more page. I feel kind of weird showing these things, although we all know that, you go to SEGD and you go to some other places to get ideas. But so we saw all this stuff and we're like, how could we make it Lenovo? So the next page, I think, starts to talk about our stuff. No, we're still looking at, one thing I want to mention about Mobile World Congress is that there was the need to have many more standalone displays where people could get their hands on, the device. So really thinking about how, and we have, AR, there's all the augmented realities, all that stuff that we had to bring to life. So really researching the technology behind that and what we could do in the space is really important. It took a long time to do that. So here we are. This is kind of the making of our space. And this is kind of where we arrived, and that's your big, our big logo that went on a curved surface. And of course, that's going to start animating. This is when it starts to look like, Las Vegas and Disney World in Spain. Here's an overall look of the build that we arrived with. And I think one of the interesting things about this particular space that, once again, I think we were there and we would still be there 6 years in a row. You're given a space and you know where you are. And having a corner unit allowed us to put like a central area. And this area right here, there was an experience I'll go into a little bit deeper that was really there to kind of bring people into our space. It was kind of fluffy. Here's another overall look. As you can see, I am not shy about applying color and pattern. I think it's actually the artistic part of it. You can keep moving. And once again, you have to do all the considerations. I keep showing the Motorola. It's one of the brands that Lenovo owns, and that was a logo wall where people would take pictures and put their little picture on there. But once again, how do you get experiences and get memorable things happening? This was the sounds of MWC. People would come up and record their sound, and then it would be part of our digital crown, which was kind of neat. It got people in the door, and there's all those levels. It's almost like the visual funnel of getting people into your space. It was very successful. And then I think, so this is wild. It's like, so just a year in technology life is like a year. It's like 7 years, right? So, how do you get people to put the headset on and experience AR, and did all that kind of stuff? And, the thing that I would do in the design of the events was that I'd bring in local things. So behind him is the Park Güell, designed by, I'm going to space it. Why am I spacing who did it? We're going to have that quiz later, or you can put it in the chat.
Gaudi, I'll help you with that one. Anthony Gaudi, there you go.
Oh my God, of course. I feel so bad. He's one of my favorites. So, bringing in kind of local flavor and stuff was always an important thing. And then let's see if you want to move on to the next one, and then you click it. This was, I think this was a table that really talked about all the different uses for AI and using AR to talk about it. So if you click it, you'll see my globe spin, but this was the UI that had this big table that you could push things around and see what technologies were used in different industries. And, you're basically trying to set the hook, get people in, and just kind of create that feeling about the brand, which was fun. But remember, this is a six months, you're building this whole thing and then you're out. But once again, marrying that with hospitality is really important. Feed people, ply them with alcohol. It's a winning combination. More colors and stuff. And, the photography would be stuff that I would go out and create with photographers, and just really trying to hit the brand and make it feel right for Lenovo. So there's that. And then the next slide. I think that's my wrap-up slide for this. And then the role of human connection cannot be underestimated. So having ambassadors that can speak to your brand intelligently and keep it fresh is really, really important. It's a big space. Okay, so I'm almost through it, but then I just kind of threw in a few kind of miscellaneous activations I felt were noteworthy, and just kind of talking a little bit more about that. So the next slide, please. Yeah, so this was one of my favorite things to work on, where this was an event that we're part of in Berlin, Germany. And, I find that the way that I like to work with design and design teams, certainly I'm not doing this all on my own, is like to think about those experiences that you want to be a part of. And I've always wanted to be in a fun house. So, then also when you're faced with different places, like how big can you make the logo? These were huge. These are my favorite large logos. And you can see through them. This was in San Francisco. And then I think another way to get people to come to your events is like, Ashton Kutcher, why not? Just go ahead and hire that guy. But, think about how to innovate the brand with plants, or, just try different things. Once again, these are 4-day events. And if it doesn't work, then you do it a little bit different the next time. But it was fantastic from a design perspective. Hey, who's that in the bottom right corner? So this was an event we held in New York. And once again, you have your entrances, but it's like that cadence of the brand. You just kind of keep building on it and kind of showing it. But what I realize is like, oh, and this is another one, so like you get your brand out, but you give them power. And this is a charging station that we roll out for different, like when we did some art museum activations and stuff. It's very handy. You want to have useful and purposeful design, and then they associate that with your brand. And so in summary, brands aspire to have, engaged communities, and they want people to like them and follow them and be, their soldiers out there. And I think that, live events, there's nothing else like it. So also think that, you're able to just have that one-on-one connection with your audience. So the only thing I wanted to say, I am married to a man that owns an event agency, and I'm seeing him, really change in this world that we're in. And virtual events are really, they're great. They're gaining a lot of sophistication over the past 6 months. And, as we talk about how will we ever go back to in-person events? And I think absolutely, as soon as we can. But basically now, live events are turning into broadcast television, and they have to, similar to this event we're having today, quick hits, fast, and keep it moving. And they're getting really, really great. So now we need is like food vouchers so that we could be eating and drinking while we're doing this. So that's my presentation for today. And I hope you enjoyed it. I feel like, I don't have a lot of the focus groups and all that stuff, but I think that working amongst, like, there's probably 100, 150 people behind any of these events. I guess those are the focus groups or clients, so to speak. But I love it. And thanks for having me on today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca Aamodt.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Like Comet, right?
Like Comet. It's great.
Perfect. Rebecca Aamodt, thank you so much. It was a fascinating presentation, especially when you can see what kind of fun you can have when there's no constraints to what can be designed, not even with reality. Right. You can augment reality.